Playoff fantasy hockey season is drawing near. That's why you got to keep your finger on the pulse for all of the top trends in the realm of fantasy hockey. Steele and I are breaking it all down for y'all on the Thursday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Top fantasy trends you need to know about and everything in between. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music and you know what time it is. It's time for your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's a Thursday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers. Thank you so much for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, when it comes to taking a look at what's popping in the league, I can't help but feel that when you have a daily check-in on the league, highlights and news, sometimes you can see these things developing that as a fantasy GM, if you're a bit ahead of the game, it could pay off in dividends. So that's why we're taking a look at some of these fantasy trends that you and I have an eye on. Of course, Thursday night, we got a betting board of, I believe, 4 games, Steele, maybe 6. You know me with the numbers. Let's call it 7 because that's what I'm seeing now. But in terms of these trends, we'll start with the Calgary Flames or wherever you want to go, to be honest. You take it away. But when I'm thinking about this and when I was digging into this research, all of these things that you and I are looking at, not only are they at the forefront of what the news is for the league, it all is going to bring serious impact on the teams very close to the top of their table, right across the board. So over to you. Take it anywhere you want to go. I said Flames. You pick because I'm ready to go today. All of these are topics that are firing me up, obviously. So hammer me with what you're thinking first.
Yeah, let's start with the Calgary Flames and start with the new addition of Andrei Kuzmenko. Obviously, a great start for him, getting a first power play goal even in his first game in the red and white jersey for the Calgary Flames. So great start for Kuzmenko, getting that new scene with a new club right now. Same goes for Elias Lindholm. He had 2 power play goals for the Vancouver Canucks in his first outing in the blue and white out in the west side in the Western Conference for Vancouver.
Right.
And I know you want to talk a little bit about the assets the Calgary Flames have right now. Jacob Markstrom and both Noah Hanifin, even Chris Tanev, who have been on the trade market, the trade block for almost the entire season at this point and have still yet to be moved or any news really coming up. But it's going to be coming up shortly because the trade deadline is only a month away. So there's going to be some talk. There's going to be some conversation. March 8th, the trade deadline. So this is going to be something Craig Conroy has to keep an eye out for if there's any buyers. If there's any buyers for these players, and there obviously are, but what I want to highlight is it's going to be a tough position for him come around March, beginning of March, because they're only 3 points out of a wild card spot right now. They're playing some really decent hockey with some of their young prospects, and some of their guys that they've acquired over the last year have really started to come together over the last few weeks or even the last month. And you want to highlight Jacob Markstrom for his incredible play over the last stretch of games as well. Yeah. For me personally, it's going to be a tough decision for Conroy to really sell these players when they're this close to a wild card spot into the postseason.
I'm here for this take 100%, and I know I've been saying that a lot for what you've been bringing on the show, but I'm here for it. I guess what I want to say is when I look at who's there now, Canucks, Knights, Oilers, struggling Kings squad, okay. Seattle Kraken, been hard to put a finger on what they are all season, and you might look at that saying there's a wild card spot to be had. I'm thinking those 3 spots in the Pacific are locked up. Canucks, Knights, and Oilers are going to be the 3 clubs there. That's what it's looking like. And knowing how much I like the LA Kings, I can't back off of them and saying they're not going to grab a wild card spot. And we're not even talking about Dallas, Colorado, or the Winnipeg Jets. So, which I think, again, will be the top 3 spots there. But you know what I'm getting at? I just don't really see the spot for the Flames to fit in. However, the numbers and what you're bringing up are facts, and they are still very much alive in that race. So let's see what happens over the next week or so. The point I'm trying to get at here is Noah Hanifin is playing great hockey. Jacob Markstrom, to me, if the Calgary Flames even falter slightly, he's going to be the first one to go. I know right now his current cap hit is a $6 million number. I don't know what his contract is. That's my slip for not having it up. But there is going to be a team out there, Steele, going to go after this guy. And a 4-1 win against the Boston Bruins, one in which he posted a .955 save percentage just the other night, is going to be that kind of performance at this time of year that is going to make GMs out there already having their eye on Markstrom pick up the phone and start some more conversations, because we know all about the goaltending black hole abyss that GMs try to have to fill. So I think Markstrom and some of these pieces that are performing right now, the target here is fantasy-wise, jump on them if you can. I know some leagues out there, deeper leagues, you're not going to get them waiver wire-wise. If you're looking to buy, go after Markstrom, go after Hanifin, because I think not only are they going to play well as they look to move out of town, they're going to go to a winner, and you know what I feel about that. That's my number one trend. Where are you looking next, though? Because I'm loving this. These are going to be the kind of situations, if you pounce on, that'll take you over the top. That's just a fact.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, I pulled up the
Thank
salary cap here. Jacob Markstrom, he's got 2 years left, 3 if you're including the rest of this regular season as well. So 2 more years at $6 million for the Calgary Flames netminder.
Makes him even
there.
more attractive.
Yeah, exactly. And if some teams can even retain a little bit of that of his contract, and it just makes that more appealing to
and
teams
I think,
to go
not
after
to interrupt
him.
you, but I think the Flames have said it's going to take quite a bit to get him off their hands.
Yeah.
But who wouldn't say that when it's a goaltender who's attracting attention? So as much as I understand that, and I had to mention it, I'm not buying into it, because if the New Jersey Devils are willing to add a young player and a couple of prospects and a pick, you can't help but feel the Calgary Flames, if they do slip, they will do it. So anyway, that's just one of those ones we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we do have to keep an eye on. I'll wrap up with this on the Calgary Flames, and then we can get to break and come back with the Vegas Golden Knights. But with Noah Hanifin specifically, he has been better over the last 5 games, but even this entire season, he's been a little bit of a letdown. And this is not one of those defensemen who's really going to produce offensively. You're really looking for those peripheral those peripheral categories. Like even just looking to last year, 176 shots, 129 blocks, 76 hits, and then 38 points. This is a player who's never surpassed. He's only surpassed 40 plus points one time in his career, and that was 3 seasons ago. He typically stays around 39, but as a defensive in the NHL, or a defenseman in the NHL, he's a stud back there. So there's pros and cons for Noah Hanifin, but talking fantasy wise, he's not one of the most elite out there, or even one of the great ones. But talking just general hockey, he's a great defenseman, and teams are going to be looking to acquire him.
A player that I've had on one of my squads this year, and I was expecting more out of him. Maybe some of these rumors for the most part of the season have affected them. I think right now what I'm seeing is maybe they finally are motivated to turn the page, even though they are within striking distance. We'll talk a lot more about teams within playoff hopes over the next couple of weeks. That's just what we do on this show, baby. But today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Driven by search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. According to Indeed data, a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, everything you need to connect with candidates so much faster. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this pod. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's episode is also brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involve risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. What a read from our boy Flip over there. That was a special sponsor read right there for Robinhood. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today. I'm not going to be able to get through this. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. They are here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. I've got the giggles right now.
That's okay. We don't do this often, Steele. Have a time, brother. Go off.
This is too funny for me.
Robinhood, baby. Robinhood.
Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We've got a couple more topics to get to before we get to big time bets at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
We want to talk about the Hurricanes. We want to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's start there, continuing in the Western Conference, because the Vegas Golden Knights are surging right now. They are, 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, I believe it is. 7-2-1 in their last 10. They are now currently 7 points back of the Vancouver Canucks because they are still winning games at light speed right now. 8-0-2 in their last 10. Vancouver is just, oh my goodness, what they're doing. But Vegas, they're surging. They've got a couple of their regulars back in the lineup. Adin Hill's been back for 3 games. William Karlsson just got back in that win the other night where he scored an empty netter against the Edmonton Oilers to ruin their 16-game win streak. Let's start there, Flip. Kick it off.
Well, here's the thing. Number one, if they're beating a team that has just won 16 straight, I think we need to just pay attention to whatever it is that's going on for Vegas. And of course, Edmonton coming back off the break. Maybe it's not exactly what the quality of the team was on that 16-game heater, but this Vegas Golden Knights team is the reigning Stanley Cup champion for a reason. And before I get into the real nitty-gritty here, the front office deserves so much credit for being able to, and say what you will about the good hand they were dealt for an expansion club. That's over with. That narrative is dead. This club has been built properly from the ground up. And the thing is, the fact that this goaltending, you can't even say tandem or trio. It's been like 6 or 7 guys in there over the last
10 guys over the last 2 years.
Even just 2 seasons just speaks volumes to the quality of this team up and down. So number one, they obviously started the year as like the hottest team, and they fizzled a bit. And then on the other side, they had Edmonton, who started slow and went hot. You got to pay attention to this Vegas Golden Knights team because it is the perfect team to add in peripheral fantasy value. Michael Amadio, Chandler Stevenson. These are the guys that week to week you can really add in when they're feeling it and get some value. And I know Jack Eichel is out. The second Jack Eichel comes back, and I'll leave Adin Hill to you, Steele, because I think we saw what 2 goalies on a heater can do. Bobrovsky and Hill, they did it. Both of those clubs were right there to win the cup. So here we go with Adin Hill back in the lineup. Let's see what this Vegas Golden Knights team can do with an actual number 1 goaltender holding it down for hopefully more than a couple of weeks for this squad. but you can't help but feel with the Golden Knights surging and getting healthy, that's where you got to pounce on some of that peripheral fantasy value. And for sure, make sure that you have your lineups primed for when those guys come back.
Yeah, I'm going to even throw in Ivan Barbashev and even throw in Paul Cotter for some
Bang.
options
There you
that are
go.
playing in the top six
There
right
you
now.
go.
Shea Theodore, he's about a week and a half away from returning to lineup. Jack Eichel should be back closer to the end of February, beginning of March. So expect those players back soon for the Vegas Golden Knights. But the whole subject and conversation where I want to talk about with Vegas starts with Adin Hill. So thank you so much for leaving Adin Hill for me, because he's been one of my best fantasy goaltenders this year. And I really do think that we, you and I both, but as a hockey community, need to give a lot more respect to Adin Hill. And I'm even going to put him into the conversation as one of the best goaltenders in the league right now.
Whoa.
And that might be a little bit of an overstatement for a guy who's only played 129 NHL career games over the span of 7 years. And I'm putting him in that tier right now. He's one of the best goaltenders. Yeah, 119 games over the span of 7 years in the NHL. He's got a 58, 41, and 8 record. He has an overall .915 save percentage with a 2.54 goals against average. Yeah. But I'm putting him in that top 5, top 10, maybe even top 5 for best goaltenders, best fantasy goaltenders in the world right now. Because even with the small sample size over the last 2 years, and even this season, he's only played 18 games. He's 13-2-2. He's got a .938 save percentage, a 1.88 goals against average, and 2 shutouts, all for the best stats in the goalies right now for save percentage and goals against average. And I understand that he's played almost 2 times less games this year than, Connor Hellebuck and Alexander Gorgiev. And I understand that, but we got to respect what he's doing right now for Vegas, because he's been back. He's been back for 3 games now. And like I mentioned this the other day, 3 straight games allowed 2 goals or less, and he's just getting it done for Vegas. When he's in the crease, Vegas is at their most confidence.
I think there's also something to be said, Steele, about this is a player that when you look at his career numbers, and he has a .915 save percentage, a positive record, and a 2.54 goals against, and the first 100 games of his career were played by for the Arizona Coyotes and the San Jose Sharks, and not the good San Jose Sharks. I think maybe we need to pay attention to what he's been able to do. And let's be honest about this as well, behind a really good Vegas blue line and a good team overall. But that's not taking away from Adin Hill at all. So I'm here for this take. Also, pay attention to the Vegas Golden Knights, because they're rolling once again, and they are not a team that I want to count out, not in the slightest, because not to take away from the Jets, Edmonton, Vancouver, this is a team that's already got it done. This is a team that's been to the Stanley Cup a few times over the last number of years, and they are not going to back down. So I don't think you and I are going to back down. We got a little bit more to talk about right after the break, maybe one more trend to talk about, and of course, big time bets. I hope we can keep it rolling just like you have been with your picks.
Yes, we're going to try to keep it rolling. I don't have a same game parlay for the 4th day in a row, but we'll come back. Before we get to big time bets, we'll talk about those Hurricane goaltenders, Pyotr, Kochetkov, and Antti Raanta, who should be the goaltender moving forward, and then big time bets. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. That's why we always use the Game Time app. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed. Last-minute ticket, flash deals, zone deals. They've got every kind of deal you can imagine. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event. The lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, and leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Flip, some more goaltender conversation, goalie talk here in the NHL. Pyotr, Kochetkov, and Antti, Raanta. 2 goaltenders for the Canes moving forward. I know you want to talk about this a little bit.
You know I have to, because Kochetkov is obviously an intriguing fantasy name that has been on my lips quite a bit. I traded him away this year in a deal that I was able to acquire Vincent Trocheck and a pick for Kochetkov. Goaltending in any fantasy setup, regardless of your format, keeper dynasty, or what have you, is usually something that if you're a GM that has been able to get 2 goaltenders that you haven't had to deal with, juggle, trade for, steal, you had to trade for a goalie within the first few days of the draft, that's one of those things that you can put off of your plate as a GM to juggle, and it usually means you are successful. So when I look at Kochetkov coming back from injury, 1, it's a concussion. Number 2, he was looking pretty good before he got hurt. And number 3, Raanta has been up and down. So when I look at this situation, and here is my take, and it's twofold. Number 1, I look at it as this. Carolina is such a good defensive unit. They allow the least shots against per game steal. They are right at the bottom of the league in terms of goals against, and I mean in a good way. And the Hurricanes penalty kill, I believe, is one of the best in the business. I don't know what they're ranked, but they're right there at the top. So that means whatever goaltender is in there for this club is set up for success fantasy-wise, and this is my second take. I don't think Rod Brind'Amour is going to run it out this way. I think they're going to let Raanta get the run out right now, at least the chance, because I think putting in Kochetkov and seeing him maybe underperform, and then you have to pull him and put Raanta in, is going to mess with his psyche a lot more than letting Kochetkov come in relief for Raanta. That's my take on it. I think they see Raanta and the veteran who is able to do it. Then if you have to go with the rookie, that's the way I'm looking at this. So right now I'm looking at Raanta number 1, but Kochetkov, both of these guys steal. You should have your finger on the pulse, because this Carolina team, I think, is going to get a lot of wins down the stretch.
Yeah, I think they're going to get a lot of wins too. And it's, for me, it's not, it's not putting it's not pinpointing the goaltenders as a big factor in those wins, because they haven't been the best. And
Fact.
Which is kind of funny, because Carolina has been one of those teams over the last few years where they've had some of the best tandem goaltenders for them. And obviously with Frederik Andersen dealing with everything that he's going health-wise, and we hope for the best for him. We hope he's back playing in the NHL very, very soon. But with what they've got right now, I'm going to try to reel you back in a little bit. And I know you're very hot on Pyotr Kochetkov, but I think we got a little too excited when he first came into the NHL. He had a really good run, 5 to 10 games. He was playing some elite hockey, but overall, just the stats just aren't there. First season, he played 3 games, not even a season. Played 3 games, had a .902 save percentage. Last year, he played 24 games, had a .909 save percentage, which is good. His goals against average has always been around 2.40 or 2.60, which he's at this year. But he's got an .898 save percentage this season. So I like where you're at, saying give the run out for Antti Raanta right now. And then if he's not dialed in, if he's not producing, living up to the standards of what you want from this veteran goaltender of yours, then go with Kochetkov. But I think Raanta is going to be the guy moving forward, and I think he's going to be the guy come playoff time.
Yeah, that checks out for me, Steele. I guess just given what the makeup of this club is and how they have been knocking on the door in that Eastern Conference, I don't think there's going to actually be very much of a leash on either goaltender. They need whoever it is, Rod Brind'Amour is not going to care who it is that's getting it done, but I'm with you wholeheartedly. I think they're going to give it to Raanta to start. Let's see what he can do. Last couple of games, he's looked good, then he hasn't. It's been up and down. That's been his season all year long. Little bit like our betting season, Steele, up and down, although you've had a bit of a bounce back week. So why don't I turn it over to you? Kudos due. Starting to cook a little bit. Where are you looking for this Thursday night board?
Yeah, I'm hoping that wild same game parlay hit for me on Wednesday night. Going into Thursday, though, I've got 3 picks, 2 come from the same game. I'll just rattle them off real quick so we can wrap this show up with a bow real nicely. Golden Knights on the money line, minus 144 against the Arizona Coyotes. They have lost their last 2 games, but they usually play really great against the Arizona Coyotes, and they're surging right now, like we've talked about. So I'm
Yep.
keeping it simple. Golden Knights on the money line at minus 144. I'm going to parlay that with the under 5.5 at plus 100 right now. Again, Adin Hill's been one of the best goaltenders, one of the best goaltenders and probably one of the best fantasy goaltenders out there. I'm taking the under 5.5 in this matchup because typically it goes under at least under 6.5 between these two teams, but I'm feeling a little
I like
spicy.
it.
And then I'm gonna finish it off with a David Pastrnak anytime goal in the matchup on Thursday night. Lock of the night though, Golden Knights money line.
Absolutely loving this. Look, we got to keep it tight, Steele, because like I said, it's been up and down in the most aggressive of ways. So why don't I just tap into that Vancouver Boston game as well? Elias Lindholm in his opening contest, 2 Genos, but I think he's going to be more of a distributing player, and he's going to get to play with Elias Pettersson, and I think that's where his apples are going to come from aplenty. So let's hammer Lindholm anytime assist Vancouver on the road into Boston. Vancouver is just absolutely cooking. In the last 10, it's a split 5-5-0 head to head for this team, for these two teams. But I'm just buying into Lindholm in such a big way. 7 assists in 20 career regular season games against this Boston team. But let me also ride with the Canucks on the money line. Those are my first 2 picks, Steele. And I'll wrap it up with my lock of the night. Carolina at home to Colorado. 9 of the last 10 between these two teams have gone under the number. And I think as much as I want to just kind of hammer Colorado in this spot for the Nathan McKinnon angle, just because of how good he is, I actually think you're going to see both teams play a very responsible defensive game because of the road game and where they're playing in Carolina, which is that's what they do to teams on home ice. So give me my lock of the night. Carolina at home hosting Colorado under 6.5. I like the head-to-head. Actually, sorry, I did say 8 of the last 9. Never mind. Giddy up.
I also like the Hurricanes at home in this matchup against the Avalanche. I'm just not quite sure how the bottom 6 or even that new looking second line of Ross Cole. I know they've been pretty good recently, but this is a Carolina Hurricanes team that is strong on the defensive side of the puck. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe. Make sure you go to YouTube. Check out the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So make sure you go over there and subscribe to the channel. Show some love. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.